She was denied a wedding dress fitting at the city's most elite bridal salon because of how she was dressed, beige culottes and a cotton blouse. The staff looked her up and down, then laughed. "You're probably in the wrong place. Our dresses start at $80,000. We don't rent." Even when Nina showed her appointment email, they refused to believe her. One whispered, "Did she steal someone's invite?" Probably another clout chaser pretending to be famous. And all those same people? They were at the billionaire's wedding. They saw her return in another simple beige dress. They mocked her again. They called security. But when the chapel doors opened, they turned around and froze. Nina Everhart stepped into Maison Claire de Lune on a crisp April morning, the kind where New York City hummed with promise and the streets smelled faintly of coffee and rain. The boutique, nestled on Madison Avenue, was a temple of luxury, its windows framed with ivory roses, its doors guarded by a discreet gold plaque. Inside, chandeliers dripped crystal and racks of gowns shimmered like captured starlight. Nina, in her beige culottes and loose cotton blouse, looked like she'd wandered in from a different world. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a low bun, her face bare except for a hint of rose on her lips. At 29, her beauty was soft, high cheekbones, hazel eyes that seemed to hold secrets, and a quiet grace that made you look twice. She carried a canvas tote, unbranded, slung over one shoulder. The staff, 4 women in tailored black dresses, their hair sleek as their smiles, paused mid-conversation. The tallest, Camille, arched a brow. "Can we help you?" Her tone suggested the answer was no. Nina smiled, unruffled, and pulled out her phone. "I'm here for my fitting. Nina Everhart, 11 o'clock. She turned the screen, showing an email with the boutique's logo and her appointment details. Camille's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to Nina's outfit. A smirk curled her lips. "I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. Our gowns start at 80,000. This is a private atelier." Her voice was syrupy, but the barb was clear. The other 3, Lila, Margot, and Sophie, exchanged glances, their lips twitching. Lila, the youngest, leaned forward, her voice a stage whisper. "Did she steal someone's email? Happens all the time." Nina's expression didn't waver. "No mistake," she said, her voice calm, like a stream over stones. "I placed my order 6 months ago. Custom design, ivory silk, diamond embroidery." She spoke with precision, no hint of doubt. But Camille crossed her arms, her manicured nails tapping. "Sweetheart, we don't do walk-ins. And we definitely don't do—" She gestured at Nina's culottes, her nose wrinkling. "This." Margot, flipping through a tablet, snorted. "Nina Everhart? Never heard of her. Probably another wannabe using a fake name." Sophie, standing by a rack of veils, pulled out her phone and started typing, her fingers flying. "This is too good," she muttered, already live streaming. Her caption read, "Stranger in clearance clothes crashes a bridal fitting." The comments rolled in fast. Laughing emojis. "Who is she kidding? Get her out." Nina stood still, her tote resting against her hip. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice. "I'd like to speak to the manager," she said, polite but firm. Camille laughed outright, a sharp, cutting sound. "Darling, I am the manager, and you're not on our client list. Let's not make a scene." She nodded to Lila, who stepped forward, her smile thin. "Time to go." They didn't touch her, not yet, but they flanked her, herding her toward the door like a stray. As Nina stood by the boutique's velvet curtains, clutching her tote, a wealthy client in a mink coat joined the fray. "Who let this riffraff in?" she barked, her diamond earrings flashing with every word. Her name was Victoria Lang, a socialite whose family owned half the Upper East Side, and her voice carried the weight of privilege. She stepped closer, her heels clicking like a countdown, and flicked Nina's blouse with a manicured nail. "This is an insult to couture," she spat, loud enough for the mirrors to echo. The staff cheered her on, Lila clapping like it was a sport. Victoria's entourage, 2 women in Chanel, snapped photos, their giggles slicing deeper than any blade. Nina's fingers tightened, but her face remained calm, a porcelain mask hiding the storm within. The livestream's comments surged. "Trash doesn't belong here. Make her cry." The world watched, hungry for her pain, blind to the power she held. Nina moved with them, her steps measured, her face serene. "You're making a mistake," she said softly, almost to herself. Sophie's phone caught it, and her viewers, now at 2,000, ate it up. "She's delusional," one comment read. Think she's a celebrity, another chimed. As Nina reached the door, Camille called after her, "Try a department store next time." The glass door swung shut, and the street swallowed her. Within hours, Sophie's live stream went viral. Page 6 ran a headline, "Mystery Woman in Beige Pants Crashes Elite Bridal Salon." Vanity Fair called her the delusional dreamer. The Daily Mail was crueler. Fashion faux pas or fame seeker, meet the nobody who thought she belonged. Twitter exploded with memes. Nina's culottes photoshopped onto red carpets, captioned, "When you RSVP to a wedding but forget the dress code." No one knew her name, but they knew her shame. Or so they thought. 2 days later, a fleet of private jets descended on a chateau in the French countryside, a 17th century estate called Chateau de Lumière. Its gardens spilled with lavender and roses, its spires piercing a sky so blue it hurt to look at. This was the wedding of the year. Raphael Linwood, heir to Linwood Media, a $40 billion empire that owned half the world's magazines, streaming platforms, and news outlets. At 32, Raphael was an enigma, tall, with dark hair and eyes that could charm or command, a man who'd turned his father's legacy into a global force. The bride? No one knew her name. The press had been silenced, a feat only Raphael could pull off, citing security concerns. Rumors swirled. She was a royal, a tech heiress, a supermodel in hiding. The guest list was a who's who of fashion and power. Editors, designers, influencers, all sworn to secrecy. Invitations had gone out to Maison Claire de Lune's staff, Camille, Lila, Margot, Sophie, along with a dozen influencers who'd amplified the live stream. They assumed it was their clout that got them in. Sophie, now with 10,000 new followers, strutted through the chateau's gates in a crimson gown, her phone already out. "This is my moment," she whispered to Lila, who wore emerald silk and a smug grin. Camille, in sapphire velvet, scanned the crowd, name-dropping to anyone who'd listen. Margot, quieter in black lace, stuck close, her eyes darting like she sensed a shift in the air. The courtyard was a vision. Marble fountains, white lilies, a string quartet playing Vivaldi. Guests mingled, their diamonds flashing, their laughter sharp. Then a ripple ran through the crowd. Heads turned. Nina Everhart stepped through the gates. She wore a beige linen dress, sleeveless, skimming her knees. Her hair was loose, framing her face in soft waves. Her flats were simple, scuffed at the toes. No jewelry, no bag, just her hands clasped lightly in front of her. She looked like she'd walked out of a farmer's market, not a billionaire's wedding. Sophie spotted her first, her gasp audible. "No way," she hissed, raising her phone. "The beige pants girl?" Camille's eyes narrowed, her lips curling. "She's got nerve." Lila laughed, loud enough to draw stares. "Is she crashing again? In that?" Margot hesitated, her fingers tightening on her clutch, but said nothing. The influencers, led by Zara Kane, a fashion vlogger with 1 million followers, swarmed, their phones out, their voices a chorus of scorn. "Did she get lost on her way to a thrift store?" Zara quipped, her lavender gown swishing as she circled Nina. "This is embarrassing," another influencer, Theo Voss, added, his gold cufflinks glinting as he snapped a photo. Nina didn't flinch. She stood in the courtyard, her hazel eyes scanning the crowd, her posture straight as a blade. A waiter offered her champagne. She declined with a nod, her smile faint but warm. The guests closed in, their whispers sharpening. "She's a nobody," one editor muttered. "Probably bribed her way in," a stylist sneered. Sophie started live streaming again, her caption bold. "Beige girl crashes billionaire wedding, round 2. The views climbed, 20,000, 30,000, comments flooding. "Kick her out." "What a loser." Camille stepped forward, her voice slicing through the music. "You don't belong here," she said, loud enough for the quartet to falter. In the courtyard, as Nina faced Camille's accusations, a cluster of fashion interns gathered near the fountain, their lanyards swinging like nooses. One, a sharp-eyed girl named Tessa, stepped forward, her voice loud with ambition. "She's probably here to steal a gown," she shouted, pointing at Nina's tote as if it hid a crime. The interns hooted, egged on by Tessa's grin, and one threw a half-eaten macaron, the pink crumbs staining Nina's dress. "Take that back to Brooklyn," another yelled, their laughter a vicious tide. Sophie's live stream zoomed in, capturing the smear on Nina's hem, the intern's taunts now trending as beige girls beat down. Nina brushed the crumbs away, her movements deliberate. but each jeer landed like a stone, piling higher. The crowd fed off it, their phones immortalizing her shame, oblivious to the empire she commanded. "This is a private event. Leave or I'll call security," Lila chimed in. "Don't humiliate yourself again." Zara's laugh was a whip. "She's already doing that, honey." The crowd pressed closer, their phones a wall of lenses, capturing Nina's silence, her stillness. She looked at Camille, her gaze steady, almost gentle. "I'm invited," she said, her voice low but clear. "Check the list." Camille scoffed, waving a hand. "You're not on any list." She signaled to a guard, a burly man named Hugo with a buzz cut and an earpiece. He approached, his hand hovering near Nina's arm. "Ma'am, let's go," he said, his tone flat. Nina didn't move. "Ask for Raphael," she said, her eyes locked on Hugo's. "He'll clear this up." The name dropped like a stone, and for a split second Camille hesitated. Then she laughed, harsh and bright. "Raphael Linwood, you're dreaming." Hugo grabbed Nina's elbow, firm but not rough, and began leading her toward the gates. The crowd followed, a pack scenting blood. Sophie's live stream hit 50,000 viewers, her voice gleeful. "Here we go again. Beige girl gets the boot." Zara tossed her hair, calling, "Maybe try a courthouse wedding next time." Theo shouted, "Send her to the cheap seats." Their laughter echoed off the chateau's stone walls, a sound that could break weaker hearts. As Hugo began leading Nina toward the gates, a famous designer, Julian Rex, known for his avant-garde runways, joined the mob, his silk scarf fluttering like a flag of contempt. "This is why we gatekeep," he declared, his voice booming for the influencers to catch. He leaned toward Nina, his cologne sharp, and sneered, "You're a walking mockery of taste." The crowd roared, emboldened as Julian tossed his cocktail napkin at her feet, the paper fluttering like a challenge. Zara and Theo echoed him, chanting, "No taste, no place." Sophie's stream hit 60,000, her lens lingering on Nina's dusty flats, now specked with dirt from the path. Nina stepped over the napkin, her spine straight, but the designer's words clung like damp air, each syllable a wound no one saw bleed. The world laughed louder, blind to her strength. Nina walked on, her dress catching the breeze, her face unreadable. Halfway to the gates, a tech heiress named Priya Shah, draped in a gown of molten gold, pushed through the crowd, her bracelets jangling like chains. "She's scamming us all!" Priya shrieked, her voice shrill enough to silence the quartet. She pointed at Nina, her nails like daggers, and spat. "You think you're clever, sneaking in? You're nothing!" The crowd surged, phones flashing, as Priya grabbed a glass of rosé from a passing tray and flung it at Nina, the pink liquid splashing her dress, dripping down her legs. Sophie's live stream exploded. 80,000 viewers now, comments screaming, "Drown the fraud!" Nina paused, wiping a drop from her cheek, her eyes steady but burning with something unspoken. Priya laughed, triumphant, as the mob howled, their cruelty a wildfire no one dared to stop. She didn't beg, didn't argue. She moved like someone who knew the storm would pass. As they reached the edge of the courtyard, Margot broke away from the group, her face pale. She caught Nina's eye, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then turned back, swallowed by the crowd. Nina nodded, a flicker of warmth in her gaze, but said nothing. Hugo's grip tightened as they neared the gates, the crowd's jeers peaking. "Wedding crasher!" someone yelled. "Go home!" another taunted. Sophie zoomed in, capturing Nina's dusty flats, her plain dress, the dignity in her spine. The internet roared. Beigegate trended worldwide, memes multiplying. Nina in her linen dress, captioned, "When you gate crash but forget the glow-up." Then she was gone. Hugo escorted her through a side door, out of sight. The crowd erupted in cheers, clinking glasses, their victory sweet. "She fled," Zara crowed, posting a clip of Nina's exit. "Total embarrassment," Theo added, his followers liking it by the thousands. Camille raised her champagne flute, her smile triumphant. "That's how you handle a nobody," she said, and the quartet resumed, the moment swept away like dust. Inside the chateau, the grand hall waited, its ceilings painted with cherubs, its floors gleaming marble, its tables set with orchids and crystal. Guests drifted in, their gowns rustling, their chatter buzzing about the beige girl scandal. Sophie refreshed her livestream stats. 100,000 views now, her DMs flooded with brands wanting collabs. Camille networked with a Vogue editor, dropping hints about her instinct for spotting fakes. Lila and Zara posed for selfies, their captions smug, keeping it classy at the wedding of the year. Only Margot stayed quiet, her eyes on the doors, her fingers twisting her necklace. The hall dimmed, candles flickering to life. A hush fell as the ceremony loomed. Raphael Linwood appeared at the altar, his dark suit tailored to perfection, his presence electric. He stood alone, his eyes scanning the room, a faint smile playing on his lips. The guests leaned forward, breathless. Where was the bride? Whispers spread. Had she canceled? Was there a scandal? Sophie started typing, ready to break the news. Then the doors swung open. Every head turned. Nina Everhart walked in. She wore the gown, the one she'd been banned from trying on. Ivory silk cascaded like a waterfall, its bodice encrusted with diamonds that caught the candlelight and burned. The skirt flowed behind her, a delicate train whispering across the marble. Her hair was swept up, a single diamond clip gleaming like a crown. She was breathtaking, not just for the dress, but for the power in her step, the fire in her eyes. On her arm was Raphael Linwood, his hand steady, his gaze locked on her like she was the only truth in the room. The hall was silent, a collective gasp, frozen in time. Camille's flute slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Sophie's phone trembled, her live stream still running, now at 200,000 viewers. Zara's jaw dropped, her lavender gown suddenly garish. Theo's cufflinks seemed to choke him. Margot's eyes widened, a tear slipping free. The guests, editors, designers, moguls, stared, their certainty crumbling. Nina didn't look at them. She walked forward, her arm in Raphael's, her chin high, her grace a blade that cut through their scorn. Raphael stopped at the altar, turning to face the crowd. His voice was low, but it carried like thunder. "This is Nina Everhart," he said, "my wife." The word landed like a bomb, shattering the room. "We've been engaged for 2 years, planning this day in secret. Not for fame, but for us. Nina asked me to keep her name out of the press, and I did. Not because she's weak, but because she's stronger than anyone here." He paused, letting the truth sink in. Nina stood beside him, her gown a beacon, her silence louder than any speech. Raphael's eyes hardened, but his tone stayed even. "She's also the founder and CEO of Eve, the fashion label you've all been wearing without knowing it." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eve, minimalist, revolutionary, a brand that had surged from nowhere to dominate runways and red carpets. Its creator was a mystery, her identity guarded like a state secret. Until now. Nina built Eve from nothing, Raphael continued, his pride a living thing. No investors, no connections, just her designs, her vision, and a laptop in a Brooklyn studio. Today, Eve is valued at $10 billion, and she's about to take it public for $1.2 billion. She owns this industry, whether you like it or not. The crowd was a sea of stunned faces. Camille's knees buckled, her sapphire dress pooling as she gripped a chair. Sophie's live stream surged to 500,000, comments screaming, "She's Eve's CEO?" "We had no idea." Zara's phone slipped, cracking on the marble. Theo muttered, "Impossible," but his voice was hollow. Margot's tearful smile grew. She'd known, somehow, that Nina was more. Raphael's voice sharpened, a blade unsheathed. "And Maison Claire de Lune? Nina's been negotiating to acquire it for months. As of yesterday, she's the controlling owner." Camille gasped, a strangled sound. Lila's emerald gown seemed to choke her. Sophie's stream caught it all, her viewers now at 700,000, the internet ablaze. Raphael's gaze swept the room, pinning the guilty. "You mocked her, humiliated her, live-streamed her pain. You judged her for her clothes, not her heart, and you were wrong." He nodded to a woman in a gray suit, Elena Ruiz, Nina's chief of staff, who stepped forward with a tablet glowing. "Elena," Raphael said, "name them." Elena's voice was ice. "Camille Moreau, Lila Tran, Sophie Bell for orchestrating and live-streaming Nina's humiliation at Maison Claire de Lune, Zara Kane, Theo Voss for amplifying the slander here. You're done." Guards moved, swift and silent. Camille screamed, "This is a mistake!" as Hugo took her arm, leading her out. Her sapphire dress caught on a table, tearing at the seam. As Camille was dragged toward the gates, her sapphire dress now a crumpled ruin, the crowd's silence was deafening, broken only by her desperate pleas. "I built Claire de Lune!" she screamed, her voice cracking as Hugo's grip held firm. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, their cameras relentless, capturing her mascara-streaked face, her torn hem trailing in the dust. A headline flashed on a reporter's phone. Claire de Lune manager, fired by mystery bride. Social media turned. Camille's own followers unfollowed in droves, her name now a punchline. Guests whispered, "She mocked the wrong woman." Elena's tablet pinged with news. Claire de Lune's stock plummeted, investors fleeing as Nina's merger loomed. Camille stumbled, her empire collapsing with every step, while Nina's star rose, untouchable. Lila followed, sobbing, her emerald silk trailing like defeat. Sophie tried to stop streaming, but a guard confiscated her phone, her 800,000 viewers watching her fall. Zara's protests, "I'm Zara Kane," faded as she was escorted past the lilies, her lavender gown a fading spark. Theo stammered, "I didn't know," but the guards were deaf, marching him to the gates. Priya Shah's exit was a spectacle of shattered pride. As guards escorted her out, her gold gown caught on a rose bush, ripping audibly, her bracelets clattering to the ground. "You can't do this," she wailed, but the paparazzi were merciless, their flashes blinding as they shouted, "Smile, Priya!" Her tech empire's shares tanked, news of her disgrace spreading faster than Sophie's livestream. Guests murmured, "She threw wine at Nina, serves her right." Online, hashed Priya Falls trended, her brand deals canceled, her followers deserting her for Nina's grace. The chateau's gates slammed shut behind her, locking out her arrogance forever, while Nina's vow of respect echoed, a beacon for a new era. The press waiting outside went wild. Flashes lit the night, headlines forming, fashion elite ejected from Linwood wedding. Nina Everhart, Eve's secret queen, takes revenge. Social media erupted. Nina Everhart trended globally, memes now celebrating her gown, her grace, her power. The world rewrote her story in real time. Nina stepped forward, her voice soft but unshakable. "This isn't about revenge," she said, the hall hanging on her words. "It's about respect. I built Eve to create beauty, not division. But I've seen how this industry chews up anyone who doesn't fit its mold. That changes now." She paused, her hazel eyes sweeping the room, resting briefly on Margot, who stood alone, her face streaked with tears. "Maison Claire de Lune will merge with Eve. No more gatekeeping, no more cruelty. We'll design for every woman, not just the ones you deem worthy." The crowd was silent, some nodding, others too stunned to move. Nina's gaze softened, but her resolve was iron. "And to those who judged me, learn from this. Kindness costs nothing, but cruelty has a price." She turned to Raphael, her hand finding his, their connection a quiet fire. The officiant, a silver-haired Frenchman named Father Julien, stepped forward, his robes rustling. The ceremony began, vows exchanged under a canopy of stars. Nina promised to stand by Raphael, her voice steady as dawn. Raphael vowed to be her shield, his eyes never leaving hers. The kiss was gentle, a seal of equals. The reception unfolded in the gardens, lanterns glowing, music weaving through the air. Nina and Raphael danced, her gown shimmering like moonlight, his hand steady on her back. Elena approached later, her tablet dark. "It's done," she said. "Claire de Lune's staff, terminated, effective immediately. The merger's announced. The world's calling you a revolutionary." Nina smiled, leaning into Raphael. "Good, let's keep it that way." As the night deepened, Nina found Margot by the fountain, her black lace dress damp with tears. "You apologized," Nina said, her voice warm. "That mattered." Margot nodded, choking out, "I didn't know who you were." Nina touched her arm. "You don't need to know someone's name to be kind." She paused, then added, "Eve Bridal needs a face. I'd like it to be you." Margot's eyes widened, her breath catching. "Me?" Nina nodded. "You saw me when no one else did." The party swirled on, but Nina and Raphael slipped away, standing alone by the chateau's edge, the countryside stretching dark and endless. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his voice low. "You changed the game tonight." She smiled, her hazel eyes catching the stars. "We did. Together." They weren't just husband and wife. They were a force, rewriting an industry's soul with every step. Nina Everhart didn't need to shout her worth. She'd walked through fire and emerged as light. If this story hit you deep, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.